This week, I want to talk about conflict, a.k.a. fighting, a.k.a. difficult conversations with people in your life that you love, whether it's friendships, relationships, and how we can stay in our heart center to be better connected and actually get out of what I call an ego dogfight. Now, before I go any further, hi, I'm Sonia. I'm a fourth generation intuitive, and I teach you how to look back into your innate divine self, your intuition. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Don't forget to hit subscribe, that little bell notification, and definitely don't forget to check out the description box below. Check out my workshop that's coming soon. I have a lot of free tools and tips and things to help you. So, enough of that. Let's talk about conflict. And really how we can use our heart centers, how we can anchor into our intuition and ourselves to create better conversations instead of getting stuck in either outworn patterns or even intellectualizing or getting into too much thinking when up against challenging conversations. So this even came to me. My sister sent me a really interesting article on Bustle called "Is Therapy Speak Making Us Selfish?" And it talks about the proliferation of therapy speak on TikTok in the world that really has created a lot of binaries in relationships. You know, it's like, this is my boundary, this is what's allowed, this is what's not allowed. That actually is in a lot of way avoidance and control instead of creating more connection in relationships. Now, I encourage you to go check out the article below to dive more into what this beautiful author said, because I'm going to use and share some of my favorite tools to stay centered in your heart space and in your intuition when navigating challenging conversations, because we all have them. So first, I really want to say that in order to start, think about, so for example, I had a client who was having a challenging time with her best friend, and her best friend called her and was like, I need space, I need all these different things, and really created what was a very hard boundary without a lot of ability or understanding on the other side. And when I was talking to her, she was like, it was really challenging because first I wanted to validate how she was feeling. Second of all, I was like, is this actually true? She called her mom, some friends, and different things to say, is there a blind spot that I'm missing? And found that there wasn't. So she was talking to me, she was like, well, how do I even approach this? I often feel really overwhelmed when I'm in conflict. I either go to trying to figure it out or end up just acquiescing and then later feeling bad, not only about myself, but about the conversation. So these are some of the tools that I wanted to share with you that I found useful. So very first, in navigating challenging conversations, first, just start by anchoring into your heart space. Often when we are faced with a difficult, challenging conversation, whatever that might be, the first thing that happens is our whole body squeezes. We get afraid. Your breathing shallows, our shoulders get tight, our jaw gets tight, and all of a sudden, our spirit pops out of our body. We get into our head, overthinking like a little rotisserie chicken on a spit. And, that is a good sign that you are not in the present moment. So a very good tool, very first, even if you maybe know this is going to happen, maybe that even if you're taken, since somebody's like, I need to come sit down and talk to you, first just take a breath. Even place one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, and just as you breathe in through your nose, imagine like you're breathing in the support of Mother Earth, and exhale like you're exhaling 10 birthday candles. And that will allow you to start to anchor back into your heart space and your energy, giving you a little bit more space. Second of all, the other thing where we really have to start to practice is as we listen to the other person. Let's say they were like, you didn't wash the car and then blah, blah, blah. And you always do this and you never do this. Now, the first thing that our ego wants to do is defend itself. And because that's its service and function. And it will like to start to talk. It'll either say, no, that never happened, or blah, 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 or defend itself. Now, when we can get out of ego as a practice, because it can be a practice. I know it's fun for me. And even in that same place of starting to take a breath, we can use our heart space to practice hearing what's underneath being said. What are the emotions that this person is experiencing that they're wanting me to hear? Often when conflict arises, it's not necessarily about the what happened that we can really get attached to. That often I find doesn't actually have a lot of positive things that come from it, because it ends up just being two different points of view trying to fight on what happened, but how the other person is feeling. If we can start to say, oh, if that person says you didn't wash the car and you never blah, 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 I can practice hearing. And you can even use this of starting with your intuition of like, how is this person feeling? Maybe they're feeling unimportant. Maybe they're feeling alone. Maybe they're feeling neglected. And when we can start to have this practice of listening to underneath what the ego intellect is saying and using our heart space to connect with another person's emotions, we can change the conversation. I can hear that you're upset, that you feel sad, that you feel stressed, that you feel overwhelmed, that you feel neglected when X, Y, or Z happened. Now, the interesting thing that I have found in my years of work, and even of just using this heart-centered practice, when we start to acknowledge another person's emotions, whether they're aware of them or not, their whole body starts to relax. It gets them out of having to defend or prove their point to starting to be witnessed. One thing that happens when we're in our heart space, when we can witness another person, which is an incredibly powerful person, is it starts to let go of those ego intellect defenses so that we can actually be heard. And you can even say, when they don't do the dishes or whatever, that, it makes me feel unimportant. I can see why that makes you feel unimportant or not valued. It changes the conversation. And second, when we can even start to anchor into ourselves, first validating another person's experience. Second, then we can go to our own heart space and say, it makes me feel sad that you feel that way. It makes me feel X, Y, or Z. When we can start to connect to our own empathy and actually share that in our own emotional place, that then it can, like I said, not only change the conversation, but allow a softening so that people can also feel your empathy and connect to your emotional feeling body. That is a very powerful, powerful, powerful thing. Third of all, which I've found invaluable in my own life and also with my tool that I give my clients with as empathic people, is a lot of times we can deal with a lot of overwhelm and fights, conflict. Overwhelm can get us into fight, flight, freeze. It can escalate our conversation. So even just recognizing where we are emotionally. Am I feeling scared? Is my body feeling tense? And we can call for something that I call an intuitive timeout. So you can say to the person that you're having a conversation with, I need 5 minutes of quiet, and then I will be back. And then set a timer on your phone for 5 minutes and follow through. Go sit in your room, do something, regulate. You can listen to music. You can do some deep breathing. You can go for a walk around the block. But the important thing is to honor that timer and come back and finish the conversation. Anytime that you feel conversation escalating, anytime you can feel your own blood pressure starting to rise, anytime we can get to a lot of views, that's a good flag that everybody needs a timeout. Now, when we use these timeout, a beautiful thing is it helps us to regulate. I learned an interesting thing years ago from one of my first therapists is the higher our heart rate is, the less capacity we have to hear one another. So when people are really having a big emotion, anger, whatever, that triggers each other, our capacity to hear each other narrows. So when we can start to create these little breaks and sips, it can also help us find and create and de-escalate so that we don't end up off to the races. And then last but not least, when you're in a conversation and you need to either assert yourself or be heard, I would encourage you beforehand in that same practice of setting your intention, anchoring into your heart space, of getting clear on what are the 4 things that you want the other person to understand or hear. And make them short. When we can communicate clearly and directly, it helps to get out of too much therapy speak, too much explaining, too much blah, 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 to have that be our orientation of what the North Star of our conversation is. And as we can use our spirit and our intuition, often I like to imagine that I'm talking to the spirit, the higher self of the person that I'm talking to, instead of engaging with the ego. Because even that allows us to redirect our conversation and practice anchoring into ourselves, into our intuition, into our heart center, so that from that place we have more capacity, grace, generosity, forgiveness, empathy for ourselves and another person. Because often, unless you're really dealing with a really challenging person, which sometimes we are, that, everybody's just doing their best. And when we can remember that, it can give ourselves and the people in our lives more grace. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave me a comment below. I have tons of tips and tools. I could probably have done this for an hour, but I will share some more tools, and I am sending you all my love. Don't forget to check out my offerings, and definitely I'm going to be doing a workshop in a few weeks. And so I would love to see you there. Sending you all my love. Bye.